everyone. It's Devi Erickson from the Institute of Authentic Tantra Education, the first and only government accredited school for tantric sexual healing in the world, using the Tibetan 5-element healing practices, which I'm happy to tell you about more in another IG Live. So today I'm out here outside in this beautiful weather in Kelowna, British Columbia, and I want to talk with you guys today about Tantra and menstruation, because this is a question that we get a lot, and it's kind of a taboo topic that not a lot of people want to address. And so I can't speak for like all tantric lineages and all tantric traditions and their view, but I can share with you my life experience and what I've learned, the wisdom that I've learned and gained through the years, and my understanding under the umbrella of Tibetan 5-element Tantra. And I want to talk about this today because I'm on my moon today. So I want to give all of us moon folk, moon people, some love today, and share some of this, the wisdom and guidance that I've received from other traditions throughout the years. So number one, I'll start with when I was 19-ish, approximately. I read a book called Red Moon. And in this book, the author had drawn from wisdom from a variety of different traditions, historical traditions, to cultivate this information. And the author, I can't remember her name, but she was sharing how in many cultures, traditional cultures, indigenous cultures, our bleeding time, our moon time, our menstrual time, is a very sacred and sweet experience. And we are conditioned to experience our period or our menstrual time as a curse or something bad, or for many people it's painful and uncomfortable. And we aren't given information in this culture about how to embrace our period as a spiritual and sacred experience. And so this book gave me some insight at a very young age. This is like 26 years ago, right? About how to be in relationship with my period, with my menstrual cycle, in a way that wasn't conditioned by the Western patriarchal view of women and women's, bodily functions. And so it gave me permission to explore the concept of being attuned to the rhythm of my entire menstrual cycle from the day one of bleeding, the bleeding time, to as I approach ovulation, to as the ovulation peaks, and then as the body prepares and gets ready to bleed, and then through that bleeding phase. And so it's important to understand that our menstruation is a cycle. It's not just one time of the month or 2 times of the month. It's actually can be broken up into kind of 4 quadrants. And during each of these different phases, our connection to ourself is going to be different. The way our body functions is going to be slightly different. Even things like our vaginal lining is going to be thicker or thinner depending on the hormones that are generated in our body at different times of the month. So our experience of sexuality and pleasure is going to change and be different depending on where we're at, which phase we're at in our cycle, when we make love or when we engage sexually. But in terms of that bleeding time, this is the part that I really want to talk about today, because I really want to empower all of us as bleeders, as vagina bleeders, to really reclaim this component of our sexuality, reclaim this piece of our sexuality from the patriarchy. So our sexuality isn't just, when we're fucking and when we're experiencing pleasure. Our menstrual time, our moon time, is also a part of our sexual experience. And so this is, as I said, this is a part that I want to speak to directly. So the information that I've gained through the years from this book, Red Moon, and the other research that I've done, Ayurvedic tradition, Tibetan medicine, all point to this bleeding time as a time of rest and contemplation and self-connection. And in the Ayurvedic tradition, at least what I was, my mentor told me about in the Ayurvedic tradition, there's an understanding that when a woman's body is bleeding, or a vulva owner's body is bleeding, that our energy it moves inward. It's not meant to be outward going, it's meant to be drawn inward, and it's a time of rest and inner contemplation. And in fact, if we try to bypass this, if we try to override it due to pressures of society and meeting deadlines and blah blah blah, that we can actually deplete ourselves. We can actually rob ourselves of our vitality. We got Binny Yaka. Hi Binny. Joining our live. So if we try to override this need for rest and this kind of inner quieter phase that we're in, that we will actually deplete ourselves and actually rob ourselves of vitality. And in the Taoist tradition, the way people with vulvas and vaginas lose life force is through menstruating and childbearing. So, we talk about this when we talk about semen retention for men. So excessive ejaculation is depleting for people with penises and people who produce semen. Excessive ejaculation robs the body of vital nutrients and chemicals that it needs. So not all ejaculation, but excessive ejaculation is depleting. Similarly, with menstruating in the Taoist tradition, when women bleed, when vulva owners bleed, that is a release. It's a release of not just physical tissue and blood, but it's also a release of energy and vitality that was going to go into the creation of that other human being. And we didn't, get impregnated. We didn't create a human being, but all of that energy is still there. And so all of that energy is part of what is being expelled during our moon time. So I know many of us bleeders, that's kind of a terrible term, but whatever, it's useful. So many of us bleeders will acknowledge that, as we approach our moon or when we're on our moon, we may feel tired, right? We may feel somewhat fatigued. We may feel a little bit more slow. We may feel a little agitated and, a little bit, triggery or touchy about things as we move towards our bleeding time. And so the instruction that I've received through the years is really to honor that time of that tiredness and to really honor the wisdom of the body as it moves into and prepares to bleed and goes through the cycle of bleeding. So that is something that's really lost in our Western tradition. It's something that we're very much taught to override and ignore and dismiss. We're not given space to bleed as women in this tradition or in this society. We're just supposed to put a cork in it and keep going, right? And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to this today, because that can be so harmful and so debilitating. And so just the concept of giving ourselves space and time to come to rest and to heal and to bleed and to reflect, it's such a necessary component of our biorhythms and of our menstrual cycle, is to really honor that time of rest and really carve out the space in our daily activities to honor this time for ourselves. And so, again, it's kind of a foreign concept, the idea that during my moon time, during my bleeding time, that I'm actually going to take the time to honor that instead of avoid it, right? And if we avoid it and push it away, this is a critical component of our sexuality that we're trying to override and bypass and not pay attention to. So I'm going to invite you. I'm going to share with you what I do, and I'm going to invite you to mimic that and mirror that if it resonates with you. So what I encourage all of us to do is to track our menstrual cycle. Some of you may do that on apps. I do it on my calendar. And our first day of bleeding is the first day of our cycle. And if you have a regular cycle, that's lovely and convenient, because then we can just plug it in every 28 days. We know we need to carve out this time and space in our daily lives to honor honor this experience. And knowing that, let's say you're going to bleed from the 1st to the 5th of the month, knowing when your cycle is really helpful for scheduling. So for me, what I do is I take note of when my bleeding time is, and I say no to doing extra things during that time. So I don't book interviews during that time. I try to avoid scheduling sessions or training seminars during that time. And, and granted, we live in a very busy, overwhelmingly busy at times life in the Western world that, our lifestyle doesn't always give us the opportunity to do that. But to the best of our ability, really not taking on those extra activities or those extra commitments during that window of bleeding. And in the Ayurvedic tradition, I was taught that it's like the first 3 days that are the most important for I think I'm back. So in the Ayurvedic tradition, I was taught that it's those first 3 days that are of your bleeding time that are really important for taking that time of rest and really honoring that period. And so in your schedule, just again to the best of your ability, as I said, not carving out the time and not making extra commitments. If you already have commitments in place, like you got to go to your 9 to 5, okay, but just being mindful that your body's going to need more rest. It's going to need more stillness. It's going to generally need more quiet time. So after work, instead of trying to go for a workout or go to a party or go get drinks, really coming home and meeting those needs for self-connection and self-care, and honoring, again, the body's wisdom and the body's need for rest. I'm going to invite you to do this for a few cycles and take notes on how you feel during this period and then particularly afterwards. Because I noticed for me in my life, and again, this is reflected in the Ayurvedic tradition where they say when women are able to take this downtime and come to rest, that when the energy rises again, when it's ready to move back out into the world, that it comes up and out with much more potency and fullness and force than it would if we hadn't taken that downtime. Again, if we don't take that downtime consistently, then we can get depleted. And so then again, when we're up at a peak, our energy, because we're depleted, it's not going to be as readily available and it's not going to be as vital and abundant as it would otherwise. So if you take my recommendation and just be mindful of your next couple cycles and just note and take the time to rest, and then note how you feel afterwards. Note how you feel once you're done with bleeding, and as you start to move into your phase of ovulation, notice what's going on with your vitality and your energy. Do you feel more upliftment? Do you feel like you have more access to more available energy? Do you feel more enriched? Do you feel more balanced emotionally and mentally? So just really taking note and noticing any changes as a result of pulling out and carving out this time to honor your moon cycle, to honor your bleeding time. And again, this is so similar to me to sexuality, because sexuality, our time for sexual pleasure, whether it's cultivating with ourselves or cultivating with a partner, we really have to prioritize that time. Like we really have to carve that out of our daily life, or oftentimes it doesn't happen. It may happen sporadically or spontaneously, but it doesn't necessarily happen consistently, especially as we move through different phases of life and different phases of our relationship. And so that's one of the things that we teach often in Tantra is how to prioritize pleasure and how to prioritize your sexual connection with yourself and with a partner by scheduling it and carving out the time. So I'm just going to invite you to apply the same thing to your moon time and think of it as menstruating with pleasure, right? Carving out your menstrual pleasure time. And I'm just going to speak from my experience. I have an amazing fucking time on my moon time. I take baths. I send my husband to the other room. I get to journal. I give myself a little extra time to sleep in late. I drink tea in bed. bed. Like, I really just nurture and love and treat myself with tenderness and care while I'm expelling liters of blood from my vagina. Like, we really need to honor the reality of what's happening. That is a tremendous, our blood is life force, and that's a tremendous loss of life force energy that's coming out of our bodies. So to try to override that and function at our normal capacity is really doing ourselves a grave disservice, in my opinion. So when we take the time and prioritize menstruating with pleasure, I'm introducing this concept now. When we take the time to prioritize menstruating with pleasure and nurturing ourselves through this moon time, what that does is it regenerates. It allows our moon time, our menstrual time, to really reclaim its place in our cycle. And its place in our cycle is a time of healing. It is a time of rest, and it is a time of regeneration. And just like it's important for us to get a certain amount of sleep every night, right, in order to regenerate the brain and regenerate the body, it's important, and I would say essential, for us every month to give ourselves the time to regenerate, to heal, to connect, and to really embrace and nurture the wisdom of these bodies, of these feminine bodies, of this female form. It's a way of honoring our divinity, quite frankly, and honoring our humanness. Yay, you're about to be on your cycle. I love being on my cycle, right? And how many women can say that? I mean, I love my moon time. I love my period. And so the fact that this is this concept of loving your menstrual cycle, loving your moon time, the fact that this is a foreign concept is tragic. It's truly tragic. And I would venture to say that some of the issues that some vulva and vagina owners have with cramping and pain and like dreading your period, when you can place this and reclaim this as a sacred process, as a sacred event in our human experience, I'm going to suggest that you're going to have a much easier and much more fulfilling and, again, much more enjoyable time by honoring. Our moon time is not a curse, it is a blessing. It is a gift. And it's a portal, it's a time, it's literally a portal into experiencing more of our divine humanness and our divine feminineness, if we are oriented in that way. I actually have a student who was sharing with me, she's a very studious student. She probably knows more about this stuff than I do, actually. But she was sharing with me that when a woman starts bleeding, that our brainwave patterns shift, that it's a portal into an altered state of consciousness, that we go into a theta state when we start bleeding. Just the biological process of bleeding catalyzes this harmony and this deepening of our wisdom awareness. That's pretty fucking powerful. Apparently that's been documented. So yeah. Yay, thank you. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying this. So yeah, I didn't want to go too long. I just wanted to pop in and share my moon with you. This is like our virtual red tent. Those of us who are bleeding are about to come in our cycle. I encourage all of us, starting now, to take this time to come to rest, to honor the bleed, to honor the wisdom, the divine intelligence that created this form that can birth new life. I mean, that is fucking miraculous, that we give birth to other human beings, that we have the capacity. We are the governors of the life force energy. We are the governors and the gatekeepers to humanity, quite frankly. They pass through the portal of our vaginas to get into this realm. And so reclaiming our blood time, our moon time, I believe is an essential aspect to reclaiming our full empowerment, our full sexual empowerment as vulva and vagina owners. So thank you so much for, yay, Glamazon. I'm bleeding with you, sister. Glamazon's bleeding with me, sister. Break down to break through. So have a beautiful moon time, my friends. Let's bleed together. Let's send all that loving, healing moon energy out into the world. May it nourish the earth. May it nourish ourselves, may it nourish our families, may it nourish our communities, may it nourish our societies, and may this set the stage for greater healing and wisdom and awareness to arise. Have a beautiful day. Take care. We'll see you soon.